Hi everyone, my name is Alexis. Welcome to class today. Today is a beginner yoga for energy. So if you've never done yoga before, this is a great class. I do want you to have some props. Make sure you have some yoga blocks or some block-like things. You could use boxes, you could use books, anything that you're able to put under your hands to bring the ground closer to you. It doesn't have to be a fancy yoga block. Other than that, all you need is yourself. You don't even really need a yoga mat for this if you don't want one, but we're gonna start in tabletop. So every single tabletop pose starts the same way. You want your hips over your knees and your shoulders over your wrists. We're literally making a table with our bodies, and I want you to firm up your core so it scoops back towards your spine, and see if you can make your spine lay nice and flat, almost as if I could balance a precious tea set on your back. It wouldn't fall. And all you're going to do here is just focus on engaging your core and pressing into the mat with your hands and your legs. Perfect. On your inhale, you're going to drop your belly and look up to the ceiling. You're expanding your chest forward. And then on your exhale, you're going to scoop your spine up to the ceiling and tuck your chin into your chest. This is our cat-cow motion. You always see these two poses together, and we use it to link up your breath. So continue moving just like that. Inhale, and then we say shine your heart forward. So you really want to expand your chest open on the inhale, and then on the exhale, you're scooping your spine up to the sky, almost like you're making a rainbow with your spine. What this does is it helps us sync up our breath and movement, like I mentioned, but it also loosens up our spine. Go ahead and do one more round for me. And then come back to your nice straight spine, still pressing into the mat. Beautiful. And we're just going to bring our right foot forward in between our hands to come into a low lunge position. Now, if you are at all 90-degree angles, that's great. If you can scooch that right foot forward and you can really flex through your hips, also great. No matter where you are, you're going to get the same benefits in this pose. Also, no matter where you are, make sure that your knee is directly over your ankle and your right leg, your right knee directly over your right ankle. We don't want to overextend the knee or put too much pressure on the knee. We want to be protecting our joints at all times. Once you've arrived there, inhale the arms up overhead, or you can keep them at your hips. Whatever is most comfortable. A lot of yoga is yogi's choice. What feels good in your body. Take a deep breath in, and then go ahead and exhale and bring your left hand down to the mat next to your right foot. And we're going to do a little twist. So you'll lift your right arm up to the ceiling and open up your torso to the right side of your mat. In twist, we want to twist from our core. So even though we're opening up in our shoulders here, we're still using our core to twist. Beautiful. Take one more deep breath in. Exhale, bring that right hand back to the mat. And all you're going to do is just take that right knee back to meet the left, coming into your tabletop pose one more time. Very nice. You're doing great. Again, whenever you come into tabletop, make sure your hips over your knees and your shoulders are over your wrists. Firm up through your core again, kind of reorient yourself to your tabletop pose. And then when you're ready, bring your left foot forward into your low lunge position. And I didn't mention this on the other side, but if it's hard for you to balance in your low lunge, or you want to keep your hands on the mat, this is a great place where you can use your blocks. Your blocks basically bring the ground to you. There is nothing wrong with using blocks. They are not just for beginners. What they do is they enable you to keep your spine nice and long. So if you can't quite balance yet, use blocks, press your hands into them, they're underneath your shoulders, and it'll allow your spine to stretch and lengthen, which is one of our main goals in yoga, is to create more space in our bodies, and we do that by creating more space in our spine. Beautiful. From your low lunge position, this time you'll bring your right hand down to the mat and open up your left arm to the ceiling for we call this our easy twist. You can do this in a low lunge position or a high lunge position with your back knee lifted off the mat, but today we're just in low lunge. And just continue to breathe into this twist. Bring your left hand back down to the mat and step your left knee back. Next pose we're going to come into is the ever famous downward facing dog. So walk your hands forward about an inch, curl your back toes under, and you're going to send your hips up to the ceiling and keep your knees bent. Not everybody can bring their heels all the way down to the mat, and not everyone can be in downward dog with straight legs. The purpose of downward dog is it's actually an upper body pose. You want to be pressing into the mat through the knuckles of your hands and pressing your sternum towards the mat. It almost should feel like you're about to jump up into a handstand. If you would like to, you can begin to see if you can straighten your legs. But again, it's not necessary. I have many yoga teachers of my own who prefer downward dog with bent legs. But feel it out. You can also bend into one knee and then the other. We call that walking out your downward facing dog. You're doing great. Go ahead and walk your feet to meet your hands. And if that's kind of hard for you, if you can't walk your feet all the way up to your hands, you can walk your feet halfway and then you can walk your hands backwards to meet your feet. Either way, however you get there, meet me at the top of your mat in a forward fold, a standing forward fold. In our forward folds, we're folding from our hips. And again, you can always bend your knees here. The goal is not necessarily to get the legs straight. The goal is to get a nice release in your back and your hamstrings. You're also always welcome to have blocks underneath your hands. Again, it's always about bringing the floor to you. Beautiful. And you can always see if you can straighten your knees. Kind of play with that as you progress in your yoga practice. Beautiful. On your next inhale, we're going to lift up halfway. So just like we had our spine straight and tabletop, we're lifting up. So we're basically creating an upside down L shape with our body. I like to press either into my calves or into my thighs, or even blocks. You can bring blocks directly under your shoulders and press into the blocks. We want our back to be super straight, again, so we can balance that really delicate China tea set on our backs. This firms up our core, it stretches our quads. Beautiful. Exhale into your fold and then roll all the way up to standing. And inhale the arms up overhead. Exhale, hands into prayer at heart center. Very nice. You did great. Inhale the arms back up overhead. And all you're going to do here is just bend your knees. And this is our chair pose. Your feet should be about hip width apart, and see if you can transfer your weight back into your heels. And again, it doesn't matter how deep you are here. This is a challenging posture. So just bend your knees. Almost sit as if you're going back into a chair. Beautiful. And then exhale, coming back into your forward fold, just like we were a minute ago. Inhale, lift up halfway. Again, making that upside down L shape. Then bring your hands to the mat and step your way back into downward facing dog. Beautiful. And again, you can bend your knees as much as you need here in downward facing dog. And this time we're going to lift the right leg off the mat. Doesn't matter, again, how high or low the leg is. And then bring the knee to meet your nose. Obviously, it doesn't have to touch your nose. We're doing that to bring that right foot in between our hands to come up into our low lunge position, again, on the right side. And again, you can have your blocks underneath your hands, or you can inhale the arms up overhead. Just take a few deep breaths here. Low lunge is a balancing posture to some extent. So scoop your abs back to the spine. Beautiful. And then bring the left hand down to the mat and open up the right arm to the ceiling for our easy low lunge twist again. We're kind of just repeating what we did from tabletop, only we're doing it from downward dog now. Bring that right hand back to the mat. This time, curl the left toes under and see if you can press your way from low lunge right back into downward facing dog. Takes a lot of arm strength, but I believe in you. Beautiful. Take a few breaths in your downward facing dog. Maybe bend one knee and then the other. Beautiful. And then inhale the left leg up to the ceiling, towards the ceiling. Exhale, bring that left knee towards your nose to bring the left foot between your hands and come up into your low lunge again. Again, making sure that left knee is directly over your left ankle. You're seeing how much you can drop your hips toward the ground. Very nice. Take another deep breath in, and on the exhale, bring that right hand down to the mat and open up the left arm to the ceiling for your twist. And if having your arm up, reaching up to the ceiling is a little too much for you today, you can always bring your hand to your hip and still work on opening through the chest and twisting to the left. Beautiful. Bring your left hand down to the mat. curl the right toes under, press your way back into downward facing dog. And if you have to go through tabletop pose to get there, no problem. That's the beauty about yoga. It's very adaptable. Go ahead and walk your hands and feet together towards the front of the mat. And when you get there, inhale, lift up halfway, making your spine nice and straight. Exhale, fold, and roll all the way up to standing. You can lift the arms up overhead. Exhale, the hands to heart center. Very nice. Now we're going to come into a wide-legged position. I like to keep about the length of one of my own legs between my feet here. And you want your feet to be parallel to the short edge of your mat, so toes facing forward. Inhale the arms down, around, and up overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center, and turn the right toes out. We're coming into our Warrior Two pose, and we always want to start with our foundation. So that right heel, when it lines up with your left foot, which is still facing forward, it should hit the middle of that arch of your left foot. We call that heel to arch alignment. From here, bend into that right knee. It again should be directly over the right ankle. Your shoulders should be directly over your hips. And then inhale the arms out in a T shape and look over that right knee. And just breathe. This is your Warrior Two pose. This is one of the most powerful and activating poses in yoga. Beautiful. Reach forward and then bring that arm up over your head, bend back towards that left leg. You can also rest your hand on your calf or your shin or your hip, your left hand, but never on your knee. We call this our reverse warrior. Our legs stay the same. We're still pressing into the mat. Our knee is still bent. We've just done a little back bend. Inhale and come forward. Bring that right elbow to rest on your right thigh and reach the left arm up overhead. This is your side angle pose. And I don't want you to put too much weight on that arm resting on your thigh. You want to use your obliques to hold you up here. Come back into your Warrior Two, arms out to the sides. Straighten that right leg. We're going to come into triangle pose. So Beyonce booty pop your hips back to the left. Reach your arms super forward over the right leg, and then just windmill the arms in one smooth motion. So you're kind of doing a T shape to the side. You can rest your hand on your shin or a block. I love to use a block. But the important thing here is you don't want to get your hand to the ground. You want to keep your spine nice and long, like we do in all poses. Beautiful. Come back up to standing. Turn those right toes in, so they're parallel to the short edge of the mat. And this time we'll turn the left toes out. And we'll do the same thing. Make sure that that left heel lines up with the middle of the right foot. You're basically creating a T shape. That left knee should be directly over the left ankle. We don't want it to go too far. If it's a little further back, that's okay. Bring your shoulders over your hips and inhale the arms up into a T shape. And look over that left hand. Very nice. Just a few deep breaths here. And then on your inhale, reach that left arm up overhead and bend towards that right leg, coming into a reverse warrior again. And again, it doesn't matter how far you come in this pose. If you only bend back a little ways, that's okay. The beauty of yoga is we are making shapes with our bodies. So all those different shapes will look different for everybody. Come forward and bring your left elbow to rest on your left thigh, coming into our side angle pose. Your right arm can reach straight up to the ceiling, or it can reach past your ear towards the corner where your wall and your ceiling meet. Come back into Warrior Two, straighten that front left knee, and we're going to come into our triangle pose again. So booty pop your hips to the right, reach forward over the left, and windmill the arms in one smooth motion to come into that sort of T shape. And again, you can always use a block. You can also always rest your hand on your thigh if you can't quite bend that far to the mat. That's totally fine. And you can look wherever is comfortable. You can look up to the ceiling, you can look straight ahead, or you can look down. Come on back to standing and pivot both feet so your toes are forward. They're parallel to the short edge of the mat. Inhale the arms down, around, and up overhead. And exhale, hinge at the hips and fold forward, coming into our wide-legged forward fold. Very similar to our standing forward fold. It's just the legs are farther apart. You get a slightly different stretch here in this pose. So allow yourself to relax here. Take a few deep breaths. In yoga, we always use our breath to come back to the present moment, to come back into our bodies. And like I said, in our standing forward fold, you can always put blocks under the hands. Beautiful. Bring your hands to your hips, press into your feet, and come all the way up to standing. Very nice. Make your way to the top of your mat. You can set your blocks aside if you were using them. And inhale the arms down, around, and up overhead. Exhale the hands down through the heart and fold forward into your standing forward fold. Inhale, lift up halfway into that nice flat back, that upside down L shape. Exhale, plant the hands on the mat. Step back into your downward facing dog. This is your last downward dog, so really feel into it. Beautiful. And then lower your knees to the mat and sit back onto your heels. If you would like something underneath your knees, like a blanket, you're more than welcome to. We're going to come up onto our knees and do a baby back bend. Just make sure your knees are directly under your hips, and you'll bring your hands to your low back, almost like you were sliding your fingers into your pants pockets. And all you're going to do is just open up your collarbone, exactly like we did in our cat-cow pose. You can look up to the ceiling if you want, but it's not necessary. And see if you can glide your elbows to meet behind you. Basically, you're sort of opening your collarbones apart. Beautiful. Come back to sit down on your heels, and we will come forward into probably what everyone's favorite yoga pose is, child's pose. And you can come forward. Your knees can be together or they can be apart. If your knees are together in child's pose, you get a little bit more of a back release, of a spinal release. If your knees are apart, you get a little bit of a spinal release, but you also can get a little bit of a relaxation in the hips. Yogi's choice. Usually, teachers won't tell you which one to do, so you can choose whichever one feels good. I go back and forth between the two depending on the day. Come back up to a seated position, and we're just going to swing our legs out in front of us. This is our staff pose. Now, if you're sinking down in your low back, what I want you to do is roll up the back of your yoga mat and sit on it. Sit right on the edge of it. And what this will do is it will allow your pelvis to tilt forward, which is better for your low back. It's healthier for your spine. And if you're fine just sitting on the mat like I am, great. Inhale the arms up overhead, and we're going to come into our seated forward fold, which is very similar to our standing forward fold. I don't want you to try and reach for your toes, though, if you don't have that flexibility in your hips. I want you to keep your spine nice and straight, and then fold forward. You're like a hinge, and your hips are the connecting point of that hinge. So I don't want you folding out of your low back. I don't want you reaching your shoulders super far so you can reach your feet. Keep your spine nice and straight, and then just move forward like a hinge towards your knees. And then just take a few deep breaths here. You're doing amazing. Come back up to a nice straight spine, and then you're just going to bend your knees, scoot your bum forward, and come to lie down on your back. And use your core to get you down. Beautiful. Bring your feet close to your bum, close enough so that you can feel your heels with your fingers, and then walk your feet away from you about an inch. That's how I like to make sure my feet are set up for our next pose, which is bridge pose. You're going to bring your hands by your sides and press your hips straight up to the ceiling. I want you to look down at your knees now with your hips up in the air. Make sure your knees are in line with your hips. I don't want them splaying outward like butterfly wings or knocking together. I want them straight in line with your hips. This protects your knees as you are opening up and activating the entire back of your body. This is also a great counter pose for a back bend, like what we just did. And just take a few breaths here, and then lower the hips back down to the mat. Very nice. Hug the knees into the chest. We have one last pose we're going to do before we come into the way every yoga class finishes, Shavasana. Go ahead and let your feet fall back to the mat. Bring your hands by your sides and lift your hips over to the right, just a few inches, and then let the knees fall to the left. And you can bring your arms out in a T shape, or you can do what we call cactusing the arms. So arms out at your at a 90-degree angle from your shoulders. And just breathe here. Twists are so nice, especially these reclined twists. Use your core to bring your knees back to center. Lift your hips 4 inches to the left this time and let your knees fall to the right for a twist in the other direction. And in these twists, your head should always be where it's comfortable. Don't use your head as a means to try and get deeper into a twist, because that can damage your neck and your spine. Just keep your head wherever is comfortable. We want to twist from our core and our chest. Beautiful. Bring your knees back to center. Adjust your hips so everything's nice and in line again. And then extend your feet as long as the mat and as wide as the mat. And you can either relax one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, or you can relax your hands by your sides for Shavasana. Either way. If your hands are by your sides, a little thing I like to do is to use my fingers to walk my fingers down the mat and see if I can pull my shoulders away from my ears a little bit more, just to create more space in my neck. Shavasana is generally a pose done at the end of class, and this is sort of the pose that we use to allow our bodies to process all of the hard work that we did. For as much work as we do on our bodies, it is equally important to rest. And Shavasana allows us to not only rest our physical bodies, it also allows us to rest our minds. And it allows all of that stuff that we built up and activated and moved through in our yoga practice to percolate and filter out. This pose, Shavasana, is usually what gives people the Zen feeling that they talk about when they leave a yoga class. These few moments of peace and quiet to yourself are some of the best moments in a yoga class, in my opinion. So I'm going to leave you in silence and just enjoy. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to effort here at all. To come out of your Shavasana, begin by just taking a deep breath in. Allow your whole torso to fill with air, and then exhale it out, either out your nose or your mouth. And then begin to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. I like to make circles with my wrists and my ankles. And then begin to stretch your arms up overhead, bring your feet together. You're coming into a pencil stretch. Hug your knees into your chest. And then when you're ready, very gently make your way up to a seated position. We usually cross our legs at the end of a yoga class, but if another position is more comfortable for you, that's fine. Once you've made it there, inhale the arms down, around, and up overhead. Exhale, bring the hands into prayer at heart center. And I like to finish my classes with a mantra. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. It means Om, peace, peace, peace. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for this beginner's Yoga for Energy. I hope it was fun. I hope you learned something new if you've never done yoga before. Don't forget to give this a like if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. I have a whole month of beginner yoga classes coming up this month. And until next time, have a lovely rest of your day. Bye for now.